The day the aliens arrived was sunny. Blue skies stretched over Washington, D.C. as the massive ship hovered above the National Mall. People looked up with wide eyes and open mouths. Some ran. Some took pictures. Some just stood frozen in place. John Miller straightened his tie for the 5th time. As chief diplomat for the United Nations, he had handled difficult negotiations before, but never with beings from another planet. The weight of 7 billion lives pressed down on his shoulders. "Are you ready, sir?" asked his assistant. John nodded, as ready as anyone can be to meet aliens. The landing ramp extended from the silver ship. John stood at the front of the human delegation. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed calm. 6 figures walked down the ramp. They had gray-blue skin, large eyes, and moved with smooth grace. Each stood about 7 feet tall. The one in front wore elaborate robes with strange symbols. This was Ambassador Zorthal of the Galactic Confederation, according to the messages they had sent ahead. "Welcome to Earth," John said with a small bow. Zorthal's large eyes blinked slowly. "We acknowledge your greeting, human representative." The alien's voice sounded flat, almost bored. During the next 3 days of meetings, John noticed how the aliens acted. They spoke slowly to humans, as if talking to children. They showed little interest in Earth's achievements. When John mentioned human space exploration, one alien made a sound like a laugh. "Is something amusing?" John asked. "Forgive Keldor," Zorthal said. "We sometimes forget how proud developing worlds are of their small steps." On the 4th day, the aliens presented their offers. They would allow limited trade with Earth. They would share some basic technology. But humans would not be allowed to join the Confederation yet. Earth was classified as a Class 3 developing world. "What are the requirements to advance to Class 2? John asked. "Your species needs at least 300 more years of development," Zorthal said. "Your biological and technological status is quite basic." That evening, John walked through the halls of the hotel where the aliens stayed. He needed to clear his head after a frustrating day. As he passed a meeting room with the door slightly open, he heard Zorthal's voice. "The humans are so eager to join us. It is almost endearing." Another alien spoke. "Should we not share more technology? Their world has many resources we could use." "No," Zorthal said firmly. "Standard protocol for primitive worlds. They are just people, nothing special. Give them too much, and they might cause problems. Remember the Vex incident." There was a murmur of agreement. "Besides," Zorthal continued, "their physical form is unremarkable. Their cognitive abilities are average at best. Their technology is primitive. They have nothing unique to offer the Confederation." John stepped away from the door, anger burning in his chest. Just people, nothing special. The aliens had already decided humans were not worth their time. The next morning, John entered the meeting with new determination. When Zorthal presented the final agreements, John smiled politely. "We appreciate your offers," John said, "but Earth would like to propose some changes." Zorthal's eyes blinked in surprise. "Changes? The terms are standard for your classification." "We believe they don't reflect our true potential," John said. "We request more extensive technology sharing and faster integration into galactic affairs." The aliens looked at each other. "That is not possible," Zorthal said. "Then we'll need time to consider your offer," John replied. As the meeting ended, John caught Zorthal watching him with narrowed eyes. For the first time, the alien seemed unsure. That night, John called an emergency meeting with world leaders. "The aliens think we're nothing special," he told them. "Just people. Average. Unremarkable. But I think they're wrong. And I think we need to show them exactly what humans are capable of." 6 months had passed since the aliens arrived. Now they wanted to study humans. The Confederation sent a team of scientists to Earth to run tests on volunteer humans. They called it a standard assessment protocol. Dr. Lisa Rice watched the aliens set up their equipment in the large gym. As a xenobiologist, She had studied life on Earth for years. Now she was the human liaison to alien scientists. Sometimes she still couldn't believe it was real. "Dr. Rice, we are prepared to begin," said Sendor, the lead alien scientist. He was shorter than Ambassador Zorthal, but had the same blue-gray skin and large eyes. His voice always sounded clinical and cold. "The volunteers are ready," Lisa said. "What tests will you run first?" "Basic physical assessment, then cognitive evaluation." Sendor barely looked at her as he spoke. Standard procedure for Class 3 species. The first volunteer was Paul Davis, a college student. The aliens had him run on a treadmill while they measured his vital signs. When Paul kept running for 30 minutes, Sendor made a note on his tablet. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Is something wrong?" Lisa asked. "No. Your specimen just has unusual endurance for a bite of your classification." Sendor adjusted some settings. Likely an anomaly. Next came strength tests. Maria Wright, a construction worker, lifted weights while the aliens recorded data. When she lifted more than the aliens expected, Sendor dismissed it again. "Another statistical outlier," he said. This pattern continued all day. Volunteers performed better than the aliens predicted, but each time, the aliens found a way to explain it away. Lisa started taking her own notes. On the third day, they tested pain tolerance. Steve Rogers, a firefighter, held his hand in ice water for 4 minutes. The aliens seemed genuinely surprised. "That should have been unbearable after 90 seconds, one assistant whispered to Sendor. Sendor frowned. "Note it as an aberration." That evening, Lisa reviewed her notes in her office. The aberrations were too consistent to ignore. She pulled up the preliminary report the aliens had shared with her. It described humans as standard bipeds with average capabilities. The data she saw today didn't match that conclusion at all. The next morning, Lisa confronted Sendor. "Your report doesn't match what we've observed," she said. "Our volunteers have shown above-average results in almost every test." Sendor looked down at her. "Dr. Rice, you lack the proper perspective. By galactic standards, your species falls well within normal parameters." "Then show me those parameters," Lisa demanded. "I want to see the comparative data." "That would be against protocol," Sendor said. "Besides, your understanding of xenobiology is primitive. You would misinterpret the data." Lisa felt her face get hot with anger. "I've been studying biology for 20 years. And we have been studying thousands of species for thousands of years," Sendor replied. "Trust our assessment. Humans are just people. Nothing remarkable." That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She went back to the lab and used her access card to enter. The aliens had left their equipment running. Lisa sat at one of their computers and started searching through files. Most were locked, but she found one with comparison charts. What she saw made her gasp. Humans weren't average at all. In endurance tests, only 3 species in the database ranked higher than humans. In pain tolerance, humans ranked in the top 10%. Even in strength tests, when adjusted for body mass, humans performed far better than most species. Yet the official report downplayed all of this. The aliens were deliberately classifying humans lower than the data showed. Lisa quickly copied the files to her tablet. As she was about to leave, she heard a noise. She turned and saw Sendor standing in the doorway. "Dr. Reyes," he said slowly, "you shouldn't be here." Lisa clutched her tablet. "You're lying about us. Why?" Sendor stepped closer. "Some knowledge is dangerous, especially for young species who don't understand their place." He reached for her tablet. "I'll need that data back." Lisa backed away. "I don't think so. The world needs to know the truth." 1 year after the aliens first landed, humans had built their first spaceship using some of the technology the Confederation had shared. It wasn't as fast or as advanced as alien ships, but it could travel between stars. The ship was named Eagle 1, and Captain William Garcia was chosen to command it. William felt proud as he stood on the bridge. He was a Navy pilot before, but now he was the captain of Earth's first real spaceship. His mission was to visit the Confederation hub world for a diplomatic meeting. "All systems ready, Captain," said his pilot, Sam Ortiz. "Take us out," William ordered. The journey took 2 weeks. William spent the time studying everything known about the Confederation. He also thought about what John Miller and Dr. Lisa Rice had told him before he left. They both felt the aliens were hiding something. When Eagle 1 arrived at the hub world named Zenith Prime, William was amazed. Thousands of ships moved around the planet. The city lights covered half the world. Buildings reached into the clouds. A voice came through the radio. "Earth vessel Eagle 1. Follow the guide beacon to Docking Bay 94. The welcome ceremony was small. Only a few low-ranking officials greeted them. William tried not to feel insulted. Earth was still new to space travel after all. During the next few days, William attended meetings where Confederation officials talked down to him. They treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. William smiled and nodded, but inside he was getting angry. On the 4th day, William was eating alone in a dining hall when someone sat across from him. It was an alien with purple skin and 4 arms. This species was called Xanti, William remembered. "Hello, human. I am Kita," the alien said. "May I join you? I've never met a human before." William nodded. "I'm William Garcia. Please call me Will." Unlike other aliens, Kita seemed genuinely interested in humans. They talked for hours. Kita asked about Earth, human culture, and history. William found himself enjoying the conversation. "You know," Kita said quietly, "there's much talk about humans among the lower ranks. Your kind is interesting to us." "Interesting. Your leaders make it clear they find us boring," William replied. Kita's 4 hands made a gesture William couldn't understand. What the leaders say and what others think are not always the same. William leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Kita looked around nervously. "Information about humans is highly classified. Only top officials have full access. That is very unusual for a Class 3 species." Now William was really interested. Why would information about humans be classified? "I don't know," Kita said, "but I work in the records department. I could look." 2 days later, Kita found William in a quiet garden. The alien looked nervous. "What did you find?" William asked. "I could only access a small part of the files, but what I saw." Kita paused. "Will, the Confederation is hiding something big about humans. There are special directives about Earth. Your planet is marked for containment and observation. That's only done for potentially dangerous species." William felt cold. "Dangerous? We've done nothing threatening." "There's more. Your species has been given a false classification. The actual assessment puts humans much higher." Before William could ask more, Kita suddenly stiffened. "Someone has discovered my data breach. I must go." Kita handed William a small device. "Copy of what I found. Be careful, Will." The next day, William was preparing Eagle 1 for an early departure when the ship's engineer reported a problem with the oxygen system. "Someone tampered with it, Captain. If we had launched, we would have all suffocated an hour into the flight." William knew then that he was in danger. He gathered his crew. "We need to leave now. Use emergency protocols." As Eagle 1 pulled away from the station, William sent an encrypted message to Earth with all the data Kita had given him. Minutes later, their communication system suddenly failed. "Captain," his pilot called out, "3 Confederation ships are approaching. They're ordering us to stop." William gripped his chair. "Evasive maneuvers. We need to get home and warn Earth. The Confederation is not what it seems." Dr. Karen Walsh stared at her computer screen for the 5th straight hour. As the lead scientist for the military's Xenobiology division, she had been given the important job of decoding Captain Garcia's encrypted message. The data was complex and written in the Confederation's scientific language. But Karen was smart and determined. "Got you," she whispered as the last piece of the puzzle fell into place. The information on her screen made her sit back in shock. If this was true, it changed everything they thought about humanity's place in the galaxy. She picked up her phone and called General Baker. "Sir, I've decoded the data. You need to see this right away." 6 hours later, Karen stood in a secret room deep under the United Nations building in New York. Around the table sat 12 people, the heads of the world's most powerful nations and their top military advisors. John Miller, the diplomat who first met the aliens, was there too. So was Dr. Lisa Reyes, who had been right all along about the aliens hiding something. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," General Baker said. "Dr. Walsh has decoded the information Captain Garcia sent before his ship lost contact. What she found is, well, I'll let her explain." Karen took a deep breath and stood up. "The data shows that the Galactic Confederation has been systematically lying to us about our place in the galactic community. They've classified Earth as a Class 3 developing world, but their own secret assessment puts us much higher." She touched her tablet, and a chart appeared on the wall screen. According to their own testing, humans possess unique biological traits that are rare or unseen elsewhere in the galaxy. Karen scrolled through the data. "First, we have extreme endurance. Most alien species can sprint faster than us, but none can maintain activity for as long as humans. Their data shows we can literally run forever compared to other species. They call this persistent hunting and find it highly unusual." The room was silent as Karen continued. "Second, we heal faster than 89% of known sentient species. Our ability to recover from injury is considered exceptional. Third, we can tolerate extreme pain far beyond what most species can endure. In their pain scale tests, humans consistently ranked in the top 10% of all tested species." She scrolled to a new chart. "Fourth, we adapt to different environments faster than almost any known species. Most aliens need special equipment to survive small changes in temperature, gravity, or air pressure. Humans can live from the equator to near the poles with minimal technology. Finally, and perhaps most importantly," Karen said, pointing to the last chart, "our brains function differently. Under stress and danger, most species show decreased cognitive function. Humans often show increased performance. We think more clearly in a crisis. The Confederation finds this deeply concerning." John Miller leaned forward. "Why would they hide this from us?" Karen's face was grim. "The data includes communication between high-ranking officials. They believe humans have what they call dangerous potential. One report specifically states, if allowed to develop naturally, humans could upset the balance of power within 2 centuries. The room erupted in voices. The President of the United States raised her hand for silence. "Dr. Walsh, are you saying they see us as a threat?" Karen nodded. "Yes, Madam President. The Confederation's policy is to contain any species with excessive advancement potential. They did this to another species called the Nari 300 years ago. The Nari were kept at a low technology level until they could be fully integrated into Confederation culture." Lisa Reyes stood up. "That's why they've been so dismissive of us. That's why they offer limited technology and restrict our access to the galaxy. They're afraid of what we might become." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. John Miller finally spoke. "So what do we do with this information?" The President's eyes were hard. "We protect our future, and we show the galaxy exactly what humans are capable of." 2 years after the aliens first came to Earth, humans had built 3 more spaceships. They were faster and better than the first one. They had used what they learned from the Confederation, but also added their own ideas. Commander Alan Pierce stood on the bridge of the ship called Star Runner. He and his crew were on a routine patrol near the edge of the solar system when they got an emergency message. "Commander, we're receiving a distress signal," said Olivia Grant, his communications officer. "It's from a Confederation mining colony on asteroid Kepler 7. Their environmental systems are failing." Alan frowned. That's 3 days away at top speed. Can anyone reach them faster? No, sir. We're the closest ship. The message says they have 4 days of air left. Alan didn't hesitate. Set course for Kepler 7. Maximum speed. Star Runner arrived at the asteroid in just under 3 days. What they found was worse than expected. The environmental dome was cracked. Toxic gas was leaking in. Radiation levels were dangerously high. The colony's leader, a tall alien named Vrek, met them at the docking bay. We thank you for coming, humans, but I fear it is too late. The main systems are in the central hub, which is now flooded with radiation and toxic gas. No one can survive in there long enough to make repairs. Alan looked at his team. What are the radiation levels? 80 rems per hour, Vrek said. Fatal to most species after 15 minutes of exposure. The gas attacks lung tissue immediately. Alan nodded. We have protective suits that can help with the gas. The radiation is high, but not immediately lethal to humans. Vrek's large eyes blinked in confusion. You would risk it? Why? Because you need help, Alan said simply. Alan and 3 volunteers suited up. Their suits would protect against the gas, but could only partially block the radiation. They knew the risk. We have about 30 minutes before we hit dangerous radiation levels, Alan told his team. Let's work fast. They entered the central hub. The air was greenish with toxic gas. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Even through their suits, they could feel the heat of radiation. For 25 minutes, they worked frantically to repair the systems. Their bodies began to feel the effects of radiation. They felt sick and dizzy, but they kept working. Almost there, said Ben Owen, Alan's engineer. His hands were shaking as he connected the last power coupling. Just 1 more minute. 32 minutes after entering, they finished the repairs. The air began to clear. The radiation shields came back online. But by then, all 4 humans were very sick. They staggered back to the airlock where medical teams waited. The aliens were amazed. No species they knew could have survived that long in such conditions. In the medical bay of Star Runner, Alan and his team slowly recovered. Their bodies fought off the radiation effects better than the alien doctors predicted. After 3 days, they were able to sit up and talk. Word of what they had done spread quickly through the asteroid colony. Aliens came to the medical bay window to see the humans who had saved them. They whispered among themselves and pointed at Alan and his team with what seemed like respect. On the 4th day, a Confederation official arrived. He was clearly unhappy about something. He demanded to speak with Vrek privately. Their voices could be heard arguing. Later, Vrek came to see Alan. The official is trying to minimize what you did. He says it was just luck, not any special human ability. Vrek looked angry. He ordered me not to spread the story, but I already sent messages to my family on 3 different worlds. I told them everything. Why would he want to keep it quiet? Alan asked, though he knew the answer. I think they do not want others to know what humans can do, Vrek said. But we know now. You are not just people as they claim. You are something else entirely. As Star Runner prepared to leave, Alan found a group of aliens waiting to speak with him. They were from different species and worlds. We want to know the truth about humans, one said, not what the Confederation tells us. Will you share your stories with us? Alan smiled despite his still weakened body. Of course. It's time the galaxy learned who we really are. Stories about the humans who saved the mining colony spread fast. The Confederation tried to stop the news, but it was too late. Many aliens had already heard what happened. They began to ask questions about humans that the Confederation didn't want to answer. Susan Martinez was now Earth's main ambassador. She had taken over from John Miller, who became the head of Earth's new space agency. Susan was smart and strong. She didn't let the Confederation officials talk down to her. Susan sat in her office on the human embassy ship orbiting Zenith Prime. She read reports from all over Confederation space. More and more alien species were showing interest in humans. Some were even starting to resist Confederation rules. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Ambassador, representatives from the Voltar and Kree worlds are here to see you." Susan was surprised. The Voltar and Kree were both listed as protected species by the Confederation. They were kept at low technology levels, just as the Confederation had planned for humans. "Send them in," Susan said. The two aliens entered. The Voltar was tall with green skin. The Kree was short with 4 arms like Kita, but with blue skin. Both looked nervous. "Thank you for meeting us, Ambassador," the Voltar said. "I am Trell, and this is Mox. We come without our Confederation supervisors knowing. How can I help you?" Susan asked. Mox spoke in a low voice. "We have heard about your people, how you are fighting the Confederation's attempts to keep you down. Our people have been under Confederation control for centuries. They tell us it's for our protection, but we know it's not true. They fear anything different," Trell added. "Any species with unique abilities or fast development is controlled or isolated." Susan nodded. "We've learned this the hard way. We want to form an alliance," Mox said. "Not just our worlds, but others too. Many species are tired of being treated as lesser beings." Before Susan could answer, her communication screen lit up. It was an emergency call from Earth. She answered quickly. The face of President Diane Carter appeared. She looked worried. "Susan, the Confederation Council has just sent us an ultimatum. They demand we stop all space exploration beyond our solar system. They want us to accept permanent Confederation oversight of our technology development." Susan was shocked. "They can't be serious." "They are. They claim we are dangerous primitives who need guidance." The president's face hardened. "We've rejected their demands." "What happens now?" Susan asked. "They've imposed sanctions. No Confederation ship will trade with Earth. They're trying to isolate us." After the call ended, Susan turned back to her visitors. "It seems the Confederation is showing its true face." Trell and Mox exchanged looks. "This is their pattern," Trell said. "First they isolate, then they use force if needed." Susan thought quickly. How many worlds would join an alliance against Confederation control? "At least 7 that we know of," Mox said. "More if they see others standing up." "Then it's time to act," Susan said. "Earth won't bow to their demands, and will stand with others who want freedom." Over the next few weeks, Susan worked in secret with representatives from many worlds. Some were advanced but unhappy with Confederation politics. Others were controlled species like the Voltar and Kree. All had grievances against the Confederation. The Confederation leaders discovered the meetings and tried to stop them. They declared Susan a disruptive influence and ordered her to leave Confederation space. She refused. When Confederation security forces tried to enter the human embassy ship to arrest her, they found it guarded not just by humans, but by members of 5 other species. The guards stood firm, and the Confederation forces backed down, not wanting to start a bigger conflict. 1 month after the mining colony rescue, Susan stood in a large room on a neutral space station. Around her were representatives from 18 different worlds. It was the first meeting of what they called the Free Worlds Coalition. Susan looked at the diverse faces. Some had scales, some had fur. Some had 2 eyes, some had 6. All had been dismissed or controlled by the Confederation. "We are not lesser beings," Susan told them. "We each have our own strengths, our own unique qualities. Together, we can show the galaxy that diversity should be celebrated, not feared. Today, we begin a new chapter in galactic history." The room filled with sounds of agreement from many different kinds of voices. 3 years had passed since the aliens first landed on Earth. The Free Worlds Coalition now had 23 member planets. The Confederation was worried. Their control was slipping. More and more species were questioning why they had been kept down for so long. On Earth, humans had made big jumps in technology. They studied the alien tech and improved it. Their ships were now almost as good as Confederation ships. Some were even better in certain ways. Eric Daniels checked his weapon one more time. He was a soldier on the human defense ship Guardian. The ship was patrolling near Earth, watching for any trouble. Anything on sensors? Eric asked his friend Rob, who worked at the scanner station. All quiet so far, Rob said. Just the usual traffic at the jump point. Suddenly alarms blared across the ship. Red lights flashed. Multiple ships coming out of faster-than-light travel. Rob shouted, "Confederation warships. 10. No, 15 of them." Captain Linda Rodriguez's voice came over the speakers. "Battle stations. This is not a drill. All personnel to battle stations." Eric ran to his post in the shield control room. Through the ship's windows, he could see the Confederation warships. They were big and heavily armed. "Guardian to Earth Defense Command," Captain Rodriguez called over the comms. "We have a Confederation battle fleet approaching Earth. Request immediate backup." Before Earth could respond, the lead Confederation ship sent a message. "Attention Earth vessels. This is High Commander Zexnar of the Confederation Security Force. Your planet has been declared a threat to galactic stability. Surrender now or face immediate action." Captain Rodriguez stood tall on the bridge. "This is Captain Rodriguez of Earth Defense. We have done nothing aggressive toward the Confederation. We demand you withdraw from Earth space immediately. Your continued technological advancement and interference with other worlds violates Confederation directives," Zexnar replied. "This is your final warning." Earth had prepared for this possibility. 4 more human ships jumped into the area. From the other side of Earth, 6 ships from coalition worlds arrived too. For a moment, everyone waited. Then the Confederation ships opened fire. The battle was fierce. Confederation ships had better weapons, but the human and coalition ships were faster and more creative in their tactics. They worked together in ways the Confederation didn't expect. In the shield control room, Eric worked frantically to keep the Guardian's defenses up. A hit from a Confederation weapon knocked him across the room. When he got up, he saw 3 other crew members on the floor. They weren't moving. Eric ignored his own pain and took over all shield stations himself. He rerouted power, adjusted shield frequencies, and kept the ship protected even as more hits came. His hands moved so fast, they were almost a blur. On the bridge, Captain Rodriguez watched in amazement as the shields held despite massive damage to the control systems. "How is that possible?" she asked. "Shield control was hit hard." "It's Daniels, Captain," someone reported. "He's running the entire shield grid by himself. 3 other operators are down." The battle lasted for 2 hours. 7 Confederation ships were badly damaged. 2 were destroyed. 4 Earth ships were damaged, and many coalition ships were hurt too. But Earth's defenses held. Finally, the Confederation fleet pulled back. The attack had failed. After the battle, news spread quickly across the galaxy. The mighty Confederation war fleet had been stopped by Earth and its allies. Many worlds that had stayed neutral now contacted the coalition. In a medical bed on Guardian, Eric slowly recovered. His body had been pushed to the limit, handling stress that would have killed most aliens. Doctors from 3 different coalition worlds came to study him. "His cellular structure is fascinating," one doctor told Captain Rodriguez. "His body adapted to the extreme stress in ways I've never seen. Most species would have shut down." Word of Eric's feats spread too. He became a symbol of human strength and adaptability. On Zenith Prime, the Confederation Supreme Council called an emergency meeting. For the first time in 200 years, they faced a vote of no confidence in their leadership. "How could we have been so wrong about the humans?" one council member asked. Another answered grimly, "We weren't wrong. We knew exactly what they were capable of. That's why we tried to contain them. But we were too late." 5 years had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. Much had changed in that time. After the failed attack on Earth, the Galactic Confederation fell apart. Many worlds left it. Others demanded big changes. After months of talks, a new group formed. It was called the Interstellar Alliance. It treated all worlds as equals, not as rulers and subjects. Humans played a key role in the new alliance. Their ideas about freedom and cooperation helped shape the new rules. Their unique abilities were now respected, not feared. Ambassador Nicol Bennett looked out the window of the great meeting hall on Zenith Prime. The city looked different now. Ships from all worlds moved freely in the sky. People from hundreds of species walked the streets. There was an energy and life that hadn't been there before. Today was the first official meeting of the Alliance Assembly. Nicol would speak for Earth. She felt the weight of that duty, but also pride. "Are you ready, Ambassador?" asked her assistant. Nicol nodded. "Yes, it's been a long road to get here." The assembly hall was huge. Seats for 500 representatives formed a circle around a central speaking area. Each seat had special features to make different species comfortable. Some had water tanks for water-breathing aliens. Others had different gravity settings. Nicol took her place in the human section. Around her sat people from worlds that had once been part of the Free Worlds Coalition. They had fought together for this day. The head of the assembly, a wise old alien named Jorel, called the meeting to order. "Today marks a new beginning for all our worlds," he said. "We come together not as rulers and ruled, but as equals with different gifts to share." Nicol listened as several speakers talked about their hopes for the future. Then it was her turn. She walked to the center of the hall. 5 years ago, she began, humans were dismissed as just people. Nothing special, nothing remarkable. Just another bipedal species taking its first steps into space. She paused and looked around the room. We now know that view was wrong. But not because humans are superior. We're not. Each species in this room has unique qualities and abilities. Nicol gestured to a group of reptilian aliens. The Dracs can see colors we cannot imagine. She pointed to small furry creatures. The Winti can solve mathematical problems faster than our best computers. She nodded to tall, thin aliens. The Talon can live for 500 years, passing wisdom through the ages. The old Confederation feared difference, Nicol continued. They saw unique abilities as threats to control. But we now know that our differences make us stronger together. She smiled. Yes, humans can run longer than most. We heal quickly. We think well under pressure. But we cannot breathe water like the Aquari. We cannot sense magnetic fields like the Voltar. We cannot communicate with plants like the Kree. The hall was silent as Nicol finished. The lesson we have learned is that no species is just people. Each of us has gifts to offer. Together, we can build something greater than any of us could alone. The hall filled with sounds of agreement and approval. As the meeting ended, Nicol saw a familiar figure approaching her. It was Ambassador Zorthal, the alien who had first come to Earth and dismissed humans as unremarkable. He looked older now and humbler. "Ambassador Bennett," he said, "your words were wise. I have been hoping to speak with you." "Of course," Nicol said. "I must acknowledge that I was wrong about humans." Zorthal said, "The old council was wrong too. We were so focused on maintaining control that we feared anything different." "Many were hurt by that fear," Nicol said. "Yes, and for that, I am sorry." Zorthal looked at the diverse crowd moving around them. "But perhaps something better has come from our mistakes. This alliance may achieve greatness that the Confederation never could." Nicol nodded. "We were never just people. But then, no one is. That's what makes the universe so wonderful. Your kind may be the most remarkable we've ever encountered," Zorthal admitted. Nicol smiled. "And yet," she replied, "we're still just getting started."